Security was tight outside the Intermediate People's Court in Hebei Province's Shijiazhuang City today, as verdicts were handed down to 12 defendants involved in the mainland's tainted milk scandal. The focus was on Tian Wenhua, former chairwoman and general manager of state-owned dairy company Sanlu Group, which was at the center of the scandal. It looked like the court was out to make an example here, in a case which has tarnished the Made in China brand and caused public outrage on a massive scale. The 66-year-old former Sanlu boss was sentenced to life in prison. She was also fined more than 20 million yuan, along with a 50 million yuan penalty for the now bankrupt dairy company. Tian had earlier pleaded guilty to charges of producing and selling fake or substandard dairy products tainted with melamine. The industrial chemical, which was added to milk to falsely boost protein content, caused kidney problems among children across the country. It killed at least 6 babies and sickened nearly 300,000 more on the mainland. During her trial last December, Tian admitted to knowing about the problem with Sanlu's milk products as early as last May, but not informing authorities until August. The scandal was only exposed in September. While Tian will have to spend the rest of her life behind bars, the court was more lenient with her subordinates. 3 former senior executives of Sanlu were given jail terms of 5 to 15 years. But there was no such leniency for 2 middlemen involved in the scandal. The court gave the death sentence to dairy farmer and producer Zhang Yujun, who made and sold over 600 tons of tainted milk powder worth around 6.8 million yuan. The other death sentence was for milk producer Geng Jingping, who made and sold the toxic food worth around 2.8 million yuan to dairy companies. His brother and associate Geng Jingzhu was jailed for 8 years. The Shijiazhuang Intermediate People's Court was supposed to sentence 21 defendants, but 9 people were sent to 4 other county courts this morning. Today's sentences in a case seen as a national disgrace and exposing corporate corruption did little to comfort the angry families of the innocent young victims. Dozens of parents who were denied entry to the courthouse gathered outside are still demanding answers as to why all this was allowed to happen in the first place. The sentences were unfair, and it did not justify the suffering that young victims and their families had to go through, said a representative for victims' families. They also want higher compensation, saying the 1.1 billion yuan offered by Sanlu and 21 other dairy companies caught up in the scandal was just not enough. Apart from those tried today, mainland authorities say 39 more suspects have been arrested for the tainted milk scandal so far. Ann Choi, ATV News.
China's economic growth slumped to 9% last year, the slowest rate the country has seen in 7 years. Officials are insisting the outlook for this year is still good, despite millions of workers losing their jobs. ATV's Anne-Marie Sim reports.
Just this week, Premier Wen Jiabao warned that 2009 would be the most difficult year so far this century for the mainland's development. And gross domestic product figures announced today highlight the challenges Beijing faces as the world's 3rd largest economy slows down. The National Bureau of Statistics announced that GDP grew by just 6.8% in the 4th quarter, compared with a year earlier. That, in turn, dragged down the full-year GDP growth to 9%, the slowest rate the country has seen in 7 years. The Bureau said the biggest challenge in 2008 was the impact of the world economic crisis that hit small businesses. The larger ones then moved on to the export industry across the country. The international financial crisis is deepening and spreading with continuing negative impact on the domestic economy, explained Statistics Commissioner Ma Jiantang. Tens of thousands of mainland factories have closed, leaving millions of people looking for jobs, while an untold number of migrants are leaving cities because they can't find work, which just 6 months ago was unheard of. The central government is worried that these millions of unemployed will cause social unrest if they're unable to get jobs. But Ma made clear the economic slowdown is only temporary, and the overall performance of the economy continues to be steady and fast, and the financial crisis will not change this. Just like the freezing weather this morning, it will not last forever, Ma said. Officials insisted it wasn't all economic doom and gloom, as December did show signs of optimism with a revival in consumer spending. But the jury is still out on whether Beijing can achieve its goal of 8% GDP growth next year, the minimum it says is needed to ensure there are enough jobs to absorb the millions who enter the mainland job market each year.
Overseas, the White House says Barack Obama has hit the ground running in his new job as U.S. president and already signed into law rules aimed at making his administration more transparent. But his first job was to retake his oath of office after messing up his lines. ATV's Ben O'Rourke reports.
Barack Obama has a reputation for being a great speaker, but the one time it mattered most to say the right thing.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
That I will execute the office of President to the United States faithfully.
That I will execute
the office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States faithfully.
Putting the word faithfully at the end of the sentence instead of the beginning may appear insignificant, but Obama had to retake the oath just in case, as two of his predecessors have done, to make sure he is legally president. Even though it was Chief Justice John Roberts who actually got the wording wrong, Obama put it down to nerves.
We're up there, we've got a lot of stuff on our mind, and he actually, I think, helped me out on a couple of stanzas there.
Once that was out of the way, it was down to business. First on the agenda was the signing of an executive order that puts new limits on lobbyists in his White House, a move he said was a clean break from business as usual.
If you are a lobbyist entering my administration, you will not be able to work on matters you lobbied on or in the agencies you lobbied during the previous 2 years. When you leave government, you will not be able to lobby my administration for as long as I am president.
The rules also ban lobbyists from giving gifts to members of his administration. He's also frozen pay for staffers earning more than $100,000 a year, saying since millions of American families are tightening their belts, there's no reason why Washington should not set an example during the global financial crisis. In a major shift away from the previous administration of George Bush, Obama is expected to sign an order to shut down the notorious Guantanamo Bay prison, where hundreds of suspected terrorists have been detained for years, but charged with nothing. The pledge to close the camp has been applauded by rights groups.
Well, it's the beginning of the end to a failed system at attempted justice. Barack Obama took an important step to begin to restore the rule of law and to demonstrate to the world that America stands for fair justice.
But some analysts don't believe closing the camp will be enough to show the world America has changed.
And we now have Bush officials admitting that they tortured people. We have the interrogators who have said they tortured people. It would be a terrible, ignoble, and inauspicious way to start his administration. But more importantly, Obama cannot hope to go around the world and speak about the rule of law if one of the first acts he took was to stop the investigation of war crime.
Another major change is the Obama administration announcing its willingness to talk to Iran without preconditions. However, Middle East policy will probably remain pro-Israel. Ben O'Rourke, ATV News.
Sports news now, and in football, Barcelona and Espanyol drew 0-0 in their Copa del Rey quarter-final. Tottenham scored twice in the final 3 minutes of extra time to secure their place in the